All right. Well, thank you for checking out this month's I Can Cook Too. So this month I'm gonna do something a little bit different. Usually when I'm cooking the meals, it's one or two things. It's gonna be, something that I wanted to learn how to cook for a long time, or something that I can use as an edible in the future. But for this month, I'm gonna do something a little bit different. It's a bit of a struggle meal that I'm gonna do, that I'm gonna display, and it's just one of those meals that it's real quick and easy, and it's definitely something you can do on a budget. And if it's depending, like if you're just single person, it's something that you cook one pot one day, and that shit'll last you a couple of days. Now, struggle meals are definitely something that very near and dear to my heart. I've been dealing with some, I've had some history of I've had a few health issues that I've been dealing with over the years. So, money wasn't always a big premium. And just this past year when they had this government shutdown with and it affected the food stamps, that was something that unfortunately directly affected me. I was definitely one of those people that was affected by it. Having had been dealing with some basically problems all my life. Since I was a born kid, I was born with some hip issues and spent some time in the hospital. And as I got older, it got worse, and it was definitely a point in time where I couldn't walk. So it's something that definitely affected me. And then we came and COVID hit, and that was a twist for me, because I went through some heart issues, ended up having a triple bypass and all that. So the heart attack and the triple bypass. So those were definitely some trying times. So not having a lot of money coming in, you always had to find a way to supplement meals we ate. Now, one of the things that with these types of meals, it's basically taking the cheap ingredients and making sort of a gourmet meal with it, doing it up and stuff. So this version we're gonna do is what I call Spamghetti. It's not exactly the Italian recipe for spaghetti, but it's a spaghetti of sorts. It's gonna be mixed with Spam, which now is expensive, but before it usually wasn't necessarily something that was considered like a high-end item. But I mean, I'm seeing it now, like in Hawaii, they're taking in and making whole meals out of it, and it's like a gourmet item in Hawaii, which is so wild to me. But okay, so first thing we see are what we're going to use to actually make the Spamghetti. So obviously, first thing is Spam. Then we're not going to use regular spaghetti noodles in this one. We're going to use the elbow macaroni. So of course, it's macaroni. I like the Hunt's spaghetti sauce. Now it's in a can, and we know the jar sauce is what everybody likes, but this is it's cheap. It's like $1 and change. So the first step, of course, we're gonna get our elbow noodles out, and this is the Mullers. Then we're gonna take and we're gonna get our pan. So this is gonna be a small batch because it's just for me, and I'm eating this on. This is my Christmas Eve meal, because even though this is a struggle meal, this is it's not that much more anymore. Sort of a delicacy for me, because again, dealing with those heart issues, it's not something that I could eat all the time. So first thing is we go ahead and we're gonna boil the water. That's obviously. So boil the water so that we'll go ahead and put the noodles in. first thing, one of the next steps, or it's the beginning steps, is I'm going to put some butter in the pan, and then I'm going to throw in some onions. Now I don't want to caramelize the onions too much. I just want to get the onions, just what they call sweating the onions out. All right, so the next step is to actually we're gonna cook the spam, right? And when I cook spam, what I like to do is I like to chop it up into small pieces. I don't really like big chunks. I like to chop it up in small pieces, and then what I'll do is when I'm cooking it, I want to make sure that not only of course, obviously you want it to be cooked, but I mean it is already cooked. But obviously you want to make sure that it's going to be. I want to make sure that I brown the meat. So and so now we're gonna, like I said before, we're gonna get the sauce in there. So we have the onions and the spam sautéing, and of course now to add the sauce. And like I mentioned before, we're gonna go ahead and add some seasonings as well. But the main thing is we're gonna go ahead and get the sauce on. So now everything's cooking simultaneously. The water you see is on the side. That's still boiling. So everything's going all at once. And I mean, you could make this a one pot meal, but in this case, just for time, I like to just spread it out a little bit. So yeah, that's two things that may be a little bit controversial. Is again using sugar and water may be a little bit controversy as far as cooking the sauce, but so like I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and put in the seasonings. Again, this is like an Italian seasoning. It has some oregano, has some basil. I'm gonna put a little bit of sugar in there as well. Like I mentioned, that's definitely gonna come up there. Now, I did mention a while ago little heart issues I have, so I don't really use too much salt. I think I maybe put some in here, but it was more towards the end when everything was cooked, and it was just a little dash just to give it that little bit of flavor. But I definitely don't use too much salt. Plus, spam is salty in itself, so We don't really need too much salt. Now you see like the onion powder, garlic powder, all the good stuff. So after just mixing everything up and in the pan with the onions and the spam, the spam, it doesn't show on video, but I did get a nice little and browned up the not burnt. It's right before burning it. I did get that. Yeah, so everything is it's done now. Everything is mixed. Everything, the see the spam the onions, they're fine now. They're ready to go. So I take it off the heat. Don't want to actually burn the spam. You see, there's the pinch of sugar. That I mentioned that a few times. That's really important. Again, it takes that little tartness out of there, and that really helps with the overall flavor to get, I don't know, all chefy about it. All right, so the spaghetti sauce is done. The spam and the onions, it's been sitting and staying warm and not burning. So it's time to get we're gonna strain out the noodles and then combine everything. So see, the noodles are done. So we're gonna go ahead and strain them out. Then from here, we're going to go ahead and then obviously we're going to pour the noodles back into the pot. So now it's basically we're combining everything. So we're going to go ahead and pour the noodles into the pot, and then we're going to put in and then comes the spam and the onion mix. And again, the onions have been sweated. The spam has been, I guess you could say, caramelized, but it did just put a little bit of a char on. Basically, put that little bit of a char on the spam. I think that brings the taste of the spam out. Not just heating it up, but just putting a little char. Then, of course, we combine the sauce. Of course, obviously, mix. and now it's all done. So from here, we're gonna add, like I said, very little on the salt. I can't really use too much. I shouldn't use any, but once in the blue moon, I put a little bit. Again, two things. One, it's obviously with the Spam, it does have a little bit of salt in it, but then again, you have to deal with the noodles. So that's why you just put it, with the noodles with the sauce. So you put just a little dash, enough to just bring out the flavor. And then of course you cook it for a minute, let it sit and cook, and then voila, it's done. Here's a bowl of I put in a bowl, but a bowl of Spamghetti. I don't know if a pink bowl was a good choice, and of course my lighting sucks. And that's it. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and take a taste and shit. I've made a bunch of things online, a bunch of these videos and stuff, and I never really show myself taking a taste. So there I am. Like again, this was my Christmas Eve meal, so it's not something I can eat often again because of the salt content and everything like that, and then the carbs from the noodles. But it was for Christmas Eve. Hot as hell. Yeah, see, before my heart troubles, it was a good meal. Again, obviously not because it was leading to my problems, but again, it was a good meal to have because again, it was cheap, and like I said, back in the day, $5, make a big ass pot of that, and that shit would last me a week. Anyway, thank you. Checking out this month's I Can Cook Too. Next month, hopefully it won't be a struggle meal, but for this one, that's what we got. So again, I'm out.